Spider-Man didn't come from Metropolis. He didn't come from Gotham City. He came from New York.
Got it now.
This is New York, the biggest character in the world. And we feel it, and the actors feel it, and Sam feels it, and turn the camera up, and you're in New York. You don't have to fake anything.
The great part about New York is the million different types of people that you'd see on the street, and just a sense of pace in life that no computer could ever capture.
It's its own character in our movie. It's just the energy, the character of the city itself. I mean, it's just so necessary. It's so integrated into the Spider-Man comic books and the movies.
This is where Peter Parker's from. You realize this is where Spider-Man's from. Spider-Man lives 70, 80 stories above the ground. We can't get that in Los Angeles. You can only get it in New York, and you only want to get it in New York.
When I created the character, I wasn't thinking, I'll put him in New York because of the big buildings for the web slinging, but it turned out to be very fortuitous.
How would Spider-Man swing without the skyscrapers? He'd be out of luck in Arizona.
Well, New York is always a character in these movies. In this case, for Peter, it plays a different role because Spider-Man's always been vilified, and this time the New Yorkers love him. And then a lot of his, relationship with Mary Jane gets played out in Central Park and various places around the city.
When you shoot on the streets in New York, you have like crowds watching, and there's photographers and people with their video cameras, and things like that.
On the sound stages, there's no audience really, and we come out to New York and everybody's out there watching. And
just the energy here really helps. I mean, you get real, tangible experiences in real settings and situations. That informs your acting as an actor.
It's a great energy to go out there and work and interact.
I deal with the director, the production designer. They give me sort of their vision of what the locations are supposed to be, and just handle all the logistics of making it happen.
New York itself, we doubled the amount of days of shooting in New York that we did on Spidey 2.
This production is like moving the army overseas. Thousands of people working on it.
The biggest challenge is really logistically getting a film crew on the streets of New York and dealing with the daily activities.
What we're trying to do, any of the street shots that show some expanse, to show the canyons, to show the hustle and bustle of New York City, that's what we're out to achieve. That's why we're shooting in Times Square and some of the other locations on Broadway and 6th Avenue.
It's our first time ever shooting in Times Square for any of the Spider-Man movies, and a little more naturally, more energized. It's good to be here. We are shooting on what's called Military Island. The roads in Times Square kind of form an X, and we're shooting in one of those triangles. So we're a little secluded, but at the same time, we lose this location at 11 o'clock. So we're scrambling to get our shots done in this location so we can move on. We get a lot of people pausing, looking by. It's what's great about shooting in New York, but it does add a little extra pressure at the same time.
When we were filming in Times Square, we really had to control the area. A lot of the tourists came out, and we had paparazzi, and we just needed to really control the areas where we were working, because that can also slow down the production.
Very, very special guest Stan Lee is here. Every time Stan shoots with us, the crew gets a little more excited. It's just a little boost to have the guy who created all this was Steve Ditko 40 plus years ago. He's the mastermind behind the Marvel Universe, and it's great to have him.
When Spider-Man 3, oh boy, I've got an actual line to say. I think Sam came up with the idea. I mean, obviously, if I had come up with the idea, it would have been more than one line. But Peter Parker is standing in the street looking at a sign, and I walk up to him. I guess one person can make a difference. Then after a pause, a beat of about 2 seconds, I say, "Enough said." And I look at him again, and I walk away and disappear into the crowd.
At our Key to the City ceremony downtown, we were dealing with over 1,000 people between the two units for the crew, and then all of our background actors.
We're going to be continuing to shoot the Arrival Spider-Man, which we're setting up right now with a Technic crane. It's basically going off Dallas Howard. She announces Spider-Man's arrival. We're going to hinge back and sweep over this crowd as they turn to watch Spider-Man arrive.
This is the moment where he's swinging in. That's what we're celebrating, the moment when he first arrives. Give me everything you've got. And it's also an important moment for another reason. I have hidden cameras on this crowd. You all could be on camera. This is your moment to be a movie star. These are the faces America wants to see.
Then we're going to have coverage of the Kiss. Spider-Man's coming in a CG form, and then we're going to see a practical stunt Spidey arrive and kiss Gwen.
Give him a kiss! Give him a kiss! Give him a kiss! Go on! Give him a kiss! Yeah!
You have to be very flexible in terms of, our weather has changed. We had to go to cover for the first day of this sequence. Had we arrived, it could have been a disaster.
Weather throws curveball into what we do. It does make things very, very challenging.
It's rained probably, out of 10 days, it's probably rained 7 of those days. Quite frankly, sometimes it's unavoidable, and you have to shoot up into the rain. And in those instances, you try to maybe put up tarps and stuff over the cast and the background performers, and you just deal with it because you can't not shoot. And so today in the cemetery, we knew that we could deal with the rain. It actually adds to it because it is somber, it is downcast, it is a funeral. It is Harry's departure from our story. So today was a good thing. It always makes it tougher to work in, and it's a little muddy, and then it's tough to get the cameras in and out. But today was actually, all things considered, better for the story that it rained.
On Spider-Man 2, the Spider-Cam was so effective in creating this dizzying, beautiful background plate that we also used it in Spider-Man 3. We would take the camera and soar it through the city, blocks and blocks, dropping some 50 stories at a time, to really give the audience the feeling that they were soaring with Spider-Man.
New York City's pretty amazing. Seeing New York in a different perspective, that's what's exciting about it, because we see New York from above, which really you don't see that often.
Our characters fly from, 30, 40, 75 stories up in the air. So in order to achieve that look, we have to get as high as we can.
So it's really getting onto tall buildings where you're going to get sort of a great skyline view of the city.
Once we start with our flying of Spider-Man, which is done with spider cams and wires and cranes and off the tops of buildings, that's where we're different than most other films.
Sometimes it's very simple, where we attach the Spidey Cam run to the building, or we have to create some sort of ballast system by using water barrels. So that's got to be designed, working with their building engineers, our Spidey Cam guys, and coming up with a safe way of doing it.
What we've learned from the first 2 movies is it's always great to get real footage of New York. So whenever we could, and it was practical, we'd take a Spider Cam rig and get some real good footage. We got into a sort of a little bit of a dirtier world, a little bit of a grittier world. We always have tried on the last movies to get a gritty New York City, but we're like 5 to 10 stories above the ground, typically. In this case, we did get, 1 story to 2 stories above the ground.
There's a great bunch of guys who put cables from one building top to another as much as a half mile, 3/4 mile apart, and we fly the camera right through the city. The camera will go from 700 feet in the air to 4 feet off the ground and back up.
The Spider Cam is a whole system of winches and camera carriers, computers and software. It's really just sort of a blanket name we give to all these little tools that let us fly the camera around and move cameras and stunt people around.
Right now we're doing a couple of descender shots off the corner of the building and down about 600 and some feet off the edge of the building. We have a couple of fairly big winches. Right now we're running a 30 horsepower winch to basically do the acceleration at the top and braking at the bottom.
So basically what it is, we got a weight over here and a weight over there that's lower, and they're hooked together on a big system like this. And then right in the center is this winch here, which is just a big friction shift. It basically just pulls the line one way. So this is down, it just pulls it up, and this helps it pull it up, and then the other way around. So the winch isn't seeing a lot of work. It's just its whole job is just to go fast, and then gravity's actually doing all the work for us.
final battle sequence, the construction site location downtown, which was Chase Plaza, all the surrounding buildings down there. We used photogrammetry that were just photographed and then digitally input into the film.
We strung a camera past that building off a series of skyscrapers and dropped a camera right down the side of that and took pan and tile photographs, 360 photographs, and that allowed us to create and use pan and tiles for a lot of the backgrounds, so we don't have to light and render all these buildings for every single shot.
We're here at Chase Plaza. We, as you can see, we got Spider Cam up, finally. Due to the rain and lightning and thunder, it's the first time we've been able to get it going. And we're gonna do some drops from about 500 feet up, a couple descender rigs, looking down, looking sideways, and then we'll change the rig around and look up. That's about our day's work.
This rig, we actually have a line between the building we're on and another building farther out, so we're actually stretched across buildings. And we have a rig that goes all the way out and then down, up and down, so we can do descender shots and back and forth out in the plaza. It took us about a day to do it originally, and then we got rained out and lightninged out 2 nights in a row. Being out in the middle of an open plaza, especially on such a foul weather time, but definitely with wind issues, and we gotta make sure our winches get covered. And if the water gets in the winches, we can have problems with that. Just the electronics, obviously, are water sensitive. Not to mention our line changes weight when it collects water, and so that changes our calculations a little bit. That's what we're doing. So these are all things we have to take into account.
We're in front of the New York Public Library for day 110 of 110 days of first unit photography on Spider-Man 3. This is it, and it's a little festive being the last day.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've all put in a great deal of swell work in this picture, and it was a great pleasure for me to work with you, and I give you my sincere and heartfelt thanks. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is a wrap.
You can't beat filming in the city. There's just a vibe here you get. There's a natural production value you get that you can't, no matter how well you cheat Los Angeles for New York, you can't create New York. It's one of the greatest cities in the world.
The great part about New York is the tremendous amount of vibrant life that it brings to the picture.
It throws me off guard a little bit to have so much other energy projecting on you.
There is a pace, a feel. The audience know that they're really in New York.
I love it. I mean, I love going to New York.
It's like another movie almost here in New York.